If we're going to be serious about raising up the next generation, then we have to do it from every seat. This is how we have high school student interns.
What's up, Intern Academy fam? Man, I'm so excited about this conversation we're about to have. These are some top leaders all across the country, passionate about raising up the next gen. And in particular, really focused on today's conversation is about working with high school students and developing them and even creating internships for high school students. But as you can imagine, there's some unique challenges and there's some unique stories, and everyone's a little bit different. And so let's just get right to it. Just want to introduce some of our team that'll be with us. Bob, get started.
Hey guys, my name is Bob. I am a pastor here in Dayton, Ohio, a church called Salem Church, and I have a lot of roles here, but part of it is overseeing our residents and our internships here at Salem. We got started really simply with high school interns. It all began when we had a high schooler who felt like they were called into ministry, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to actually try out, to test this calling, so to speak. And so we crafted a one-time kind of a summer internship for them that involved just 1 or 2 days a week in the office. And instead of waiting until they were in college, we just thought, why not now? Why not try to figure that out right now? And from there, it's grown into something more intentional, where several students continue to be a part of it in high school. But at the heart of it, really, we just wanted to see students have a safe place to test this calling out, to grow in their faith and get real hands-on experience, so that we could help them take their next step with Jesus in this season of life that they were in. And that's how we kind of got started with high school. We had done college a lot, and even some graduate students and longer forms, but just in the last few years have began to grow our high school program, helping students take those early steps to test that call, and it's been really, really cool.
Hi, I'm Kayla Harden. I serve as the pastor of Congregational Connections at Eastside Church in Anderson, Indiana. And I'm also on the ministry team for Intern Academy, and I oversee our Called initiative. And so what began as a response to a bunch of high school students feeling called to ministry and us producing a devotional to help them start now beginning to develop as leaders, to begin to develop as disciples of Jesus, has kind of evolved into this event and this movement that we have started offering to our high school students, saying, like, you don't have to wait. You can start now becoming the type of leader that makes a difference and serves in ministry later in life.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Carson Roberts, and I get the honor and privilege to serve as the youth pastor at His Place Church in Doniphan, Missouri. And not only do I get the opportunity to be a coach through IA and help our high school internship, but I've also, for the last 3 years of my high school, I was part of an internship at this local church that I'm now the youth pastor at. And, I fell in love with behind the scenes and seeing what, there was so much more to the church than just being on the stage and doing all those cool things. And so now I get the opportunity and privilege to help other teenagers experience that same thing.
Yeah, I'm Alex Mobley, and I'm serving at Creekside Church up here in Pryor Creek, Oklahoma. Our introduction into student internships was kind of one born out of necessity. We didn't really have a college intern that we could bring on, but fortunately we've had quite a few students that feel calls to ministry, and so we were able to move our resources and pivot to pour into them a bit more than usual. And so we had 5 high school interns over the past summer, and they did a great job, and it was great to have them.
Hi, my name is Sarah Weedle. I am the student pastor at McDowell Church in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we serve 6th through 12th graders here, but we started to see kind of a trend where we had students who really wanted to take more ownership in our ministry, so started to launch student leadership teams. But then, out of that came some students who were identifying a call to ministry and needed a safe place to practice and to learn. And so, out of that, we started some high school internships, which has been a really neat thing.
That's awesome, you guys, man. So exciting to see in a lot of different ways. So I'm curious, one of the big questions people will have is, okay, my high school students, they're in school. So how do I have an internship program? How do I develop them as leaders? So just tell us a little bit about it in your context. What does it look like from a weekly basis or a monthly basis? When do you do it? Do you only do it summer, school year? Just talk a little bit about what that looks like and then what you have them do for whatever amount of hours that you have them.
Yeah, so up here in Oklahoma, the way that we navigated this was when you have high school students, they don't have as much freedom necessarily as, say, a college intern might. And so we kind of had to shift the way that we had like expectations of hours and such. So instead of having like, we need you to meet so many hours within the office, we set goals for them. And if they were going to work towards those goals, the hours would kind of naturally follow. Of course, we did ask them to, come to staff meetings and things like that. But, sometimes they have a family vacation they've got to go to, and we acclimate to that. And so that was primarily how we operated throughout the summer, really kind of a personalized touch with each one, building on a foundation. But as we've gone through the school year, it's kind of just finding new ways for them to lead, maybe not in an internship capacity, but trying to figure out other ways they can lead their student body.
And that's so good, Alex. I think about we really figured out some trial and error. So we've done it wrong a lot in order to figure out what feels right for us. And what we realized was the first job a high school intern has is to be a high schooler. They're a student, and we can't have expectations on them that are wildly different from that of just a student. And so that's their first job for us, is to be a student, and then we work around that. During the school year, it's a little more tricky. It's usually an afternoon a week, or we've even had some students who have talked about, getting a class period off or like a practicum to do their internship. That hasn't happened just yet, but maybe some stuff on Sundays. In the summer, it's a little easier for us, and it feels more like a part-time job for a high school intern. We'll do staff meetings and projects and then give them some hours. Practically, they have a mandatory day, 1 day a week, where all of our high schoolers are in the office during the summer. And then based on the projects that they're involved in, they pick one other day to be present to work on those projects. But I think the thing we've found is that we have to set really, really clear expectations for them and communicate over and over and over, even sometimes with their parents, communicating so that all the expectations are clear, so they can balance things like school and church and family without feeling overloaded, which I think can be really easy to do. We've experienced if you're not careful and communicate clearly.
Yeah, similar to Bob and Alex, we focus a lot heavy on the summer. And so our summer portion would look like a 3-month heavy 20, 25 hours a week, meeting together, going and doing stuff together. We go to other churches, we go to different events, we have lessons from Intern Academy that we do with everyone, and it's more of a intense and finding out behind the scenes and finding out and then just serving in every capacity to see what it is that in ministry they could really do and be a part of. And during the school year, those ones who are part of our summer, they just gradually start doing more and more and more as we go into the school year. And so it doesn't look necessarily as meeting as much as during the summer, but those ones are being involved in everything that we have going on. They're helping us plan stuff. They're helping us do things, be a part of events and being part of movements that are happening here. And so we just try to provide the best case for them, and we try to lay it all out and say, here's everything to ministry, and here's everything that you can do that you may be interested in doing, and so we just try to do that for them, and it's been a good experience. Like I said, I was able to be a part of it while I was in high school, and now to be on the other end of it, and this being my first year of actually coaching and leading in the sense of how I am, and it's been amazing, and it's been really good. If I was, going into the next years to come, I would really love to see more and more variety in the kids that we have, not just the ones that are constantly doing stuff throughout the school years or constantly being involved, but the ones that are maybe sitting back and not doing as much, but I know and they have potential to do more and to be involved, but they're just not yet. And so I think the goal for us would be to find those ones that are really devoted. Like Bob said, we want to find them. There were plenty of students that I think would be perfect for the internship this summer, but they weren't willing to give up certain things in their summer to be a part of it. And so finding those people who are devoted and who this is something that they would really like to be a part of.
Yeah, for us, we've had our high school interns have been seniors, and in our school district, seniors get out around noon. And so the way we've done it is on Wednesdays, they would come in after school, and from, like 12:30 to 5, they would work with us. We, like Bob said, try to be really flexible with their schedules and honoring spring break and fall break. And, also maybe giving them a little bit more time off than a full-time intern would, but still giving them that taste of ministry and working behind the scenes. And I think that has been really beneficial. But there's a lot of movement in our schools right now where, they could potentially do a high school internship as part of a practicum, and it could be part of their actual school schedule. And so I'm excited about, seeing how that could change our high school internships and create more opportunities for them to get that experience while they're still in high school.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great. There's so many different ways to do this. I know the schools working with them is an opportunity for us. We have an IA church in Raleigh that they work with the schools because the students do get that same kind of practicum experience. They can take a couple class periods that are work related, and so the church leaned into that and said, "Hey, we could be a part in having students come every day after school for a period or two to get credit." So lots of creative ways. We have to be creative if you're going to work with high school students, but there's so much benefit to it. Let's talk about that just for a minute. What are the wins? What are the things that you've done within your ministry? What are some things you've seen? Maybe response from your congregation or your staff, or what are just some of the wins? If somebody's listening to this thinking, "Why should I do it?" What are the wins for you with internships?
One of our big wins that we've noticed, and I mentioned this before, but I think that there was a time period where students just wanted to come and participate in youth group. But now I think we're in this era of students really wanting to take ownership of their faith and of leading their friends and their peers. And so what we've seen through internships is like a greater level of just ownership, of using their gifts to bless the kingdom, move the ministry forward. And so greater level of ownership. And then we've also kind of seen this pipeline develop where we had a high school intern a few years ago who now, 3 years later was a summer intern for us. And so it's really cool to see this pipeline developing. And, we see it too with student leadership, where a volunteer role in student leadership is starting to grow into internships when students start to identify a call to ministry. So I think for us, it's developing a pipeline for our churches of leadership, and that leadership being identified from within the church instead of always going out and finding those leaders and bringing them to us. So I'm excited about that and the possibility of just the pipeline of leadership developing from within our churches.
Yes, Sarah, I'd say the same thing, that pipeline of leaders. Man, it's so exciting when a high schooler gets engaged with our internship, the trickle down effect that that's had into our middle school ministry and even into our kids ministry. And when other students are looking up, I think oftentimes we don't imagine or envision ourselves in a position until we see someone who looks like us actually being there and doing it. And so we have some of our high school interns who are working with our kids ministry, and they get to see that and go, man, oh, that's something that can be for me one day. And so that trickle down effect of leadership happens all of the time. I think that's been a huge win for us. I'd say another win has been we see students begin to refine this calling into their life. Some of them, it's a very affirming thing where they sense God's call and to pursue ministry. Others of them, they've said, I feel like maybe it's more. We just had a girl this past summer who was a high school intern with us, and she said, I really feel like God wants me to do ministry, but in a different way, not in the church. I feel like, and she's going into veterinarian because she wants to do things with horses and ministry with people with special needs and horses and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, that's incredible that she was able to discern some of that now, and who knows what God will do with that in the future. And so just refining that call for them. And finally, I think I just say personally, having high schoolers in the church office just adds a dynamic that you don't get with anything else. Their presence in our office brings a fresh energy and ideas, and I think reminds our team about the church that Jesus is securing for forever and who he's using to do that in the next generation. And it's just a refreshing look and reminder to, I think, our whole team. And man, those wins alone, what you said, Sarah, what I've said, man, those wins alone are worth investing in the high schoolers, I think. But what else is out there? Who else got them wins?
Well, I'd say for us, I love that you're saying refining here, because that's exactly what we were experiencing. I mentioned we had students that already felt a call to ministry. When they had signed up, some of the goals we had laid out were like foundational things. We want everybody to work the front desk or take phone calls or whatever it may be, so they could get like a very foundational, holistic view of ministry. Like, what does it take to even work at a church? But we were blessed because each one felt called in ministry in a different way. We had one that was really into worship, and one who's into students, and one who's just into preaching, and one who enjoyed kids, and so on. So we got to kind of cater our mentorship programming towards each one. And over time, man, it was great when you had a kid who was like, this is in fact what I want to be doing, and I'm going to keep pursuing that. And especially when we were at like MacU and they were saying, yes, I want to do this, and I want to go to MacU, and I want to go do something like that, and kind of see how they were already kind of formulating a plan between themselves and God. And then you had some other students that they go, you know what? Turns out kids ministry is not where I want to be. Nothing against kids ministry, but like they kind of got to go in and see how the nuts and bolts behind ministry operate. And they go, wow, there's a whole lot more than just the hour or two we see them during the week. And because of that, they had a greater appreciation for what goes on in the church. They also, this is another thing, like they felt a certain amount of permission to be able to feel like contributors to the larger church body. No longer were they just students who had to go along and just do what the adults say, right? They weren't just bodies. Instead, if they saw something that they thought needed to be fixed, they felt empowered to go and address that thing. And now you got to coach them on the best way to address some changes, but having them feel that way and actually start to act out. Honestly, they were acting better than some of our adults at taking ownership of the ministry.
Amen. My name is Dan Craig, and I'm here with Carson, and we're in Doniphan, Missouri. And what a privilege it is to be in the circle today. Wins, number one is Carson sitting next to me, did 3 summers of internships, and now has been our full-time youth pastor for a year now. And so that's huge. I loved, Bob, what you said about when the kids are in the office or when they're in the building. That happened all summer. When they were in the building, it was amazing what was added to whoever was coming in and out, and again, they just got to see behind the scenes what happens at a church. Another great thing, one of our seniors that just finished the intern this past summer, he's leading the middle school tonight. He's on that team now this fall, and he plays football, and he got kicked out of the game last week. And so tonight he's got to talk about how he's got to set a better example in front of those middle schoolers. And so it's just kind of neat to see the development, the growth, and everything that's taking place through these young people's lives. And so
that's awesome. Dan, it's just such an inspiration, man, because you're on the front lines of this. You're kind of ahead of everybody in doing some of these high school things. And now here you sit side by side with Carson, who's doing high school internships. And now you have still your crew of internships. So you have a long legacy of doing this, and you're a little bit ahead of us. But go back for me, if you would, to when you first started thinking about this. Like, why did you do it, and what were some of the challenges that you faced getting it off the ground?
Well, I was getting older, and there wasn't too many people behind me as following up, and so I was concerned about that. And so that's when we kind of launched about 4 or 5 years ago, the idea of training and mentoring, and the Lord really put that heavy on my heart to do that. And so so that's where we're at, and just believe in it, and just see the need for it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Have you had any things? Was it hard to start, or did you already know kind of how to start? Did your church buy in? I know you've been at your church a long time, but a lot of times people think this is like for big churches, and you guys aren't a big church. Everybody on here is small or medium-sized church, so it can be done anywhere. What are some of the things you had to overcome at first to just kind of get it off the ground?
I guess you do have to sell it. And get the buy-in, but that happened rather quickly here. And today, I actually had lunch today with an elder, and he's all bought in. So our church now is just like, how can we do this more? How can we do this better? How can we do, we believe in Intern Academy, and so we got a lot of momentum now, but it wasn't that way in the early days. So we started with one, and did it, and again, I always told the church early on, I said, this is probably not going to benefit us too much, but I guarantee this is going to help this student. I guarantee it's going to help them grow in their faith. And so that's how I got them to buy in, is that not so much for what it's going to do for us as a church, but what it's going to do for this individual. And that's
awesome, man. It's so exciting to think about the kingdom impact, right? You're getting to reap the rewards now of 5 years of doing it. You have your youth pastor actually came out of that program, so you're seeing fruit already, right?
Our children's, we have a part-time children's director now, and she came out of the program from this summer. And so Cameron.
It's the future of the church, right? This is how we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to build our own pipeline from within. And I hope everybody can see as they listen to this that we can become that. How about for the rest of you? You were in the early years. You're just kind of getting started. A lot of us don't have the traction that Dan has and that they have in Doniphan, Missouri. Just for some of you, what have been some of your challenges, kind of getting it off the ground, getting buy-in, getting the people to support it, getting the interns? What's been some of your obstacles?
I think for us, the biggest has been balancing how many high school interns do we want to do versus, kind of our full-time college interns. Just balance overall, and all of that has been, interesting. As each one of our ministry head and departments, they have their own capacity. What is it? Do they want to have 3 high school interns? interns, because now we have a lot of high schoolers knocking at the door saying, "Hey, I want to do an internship. When can I do one?" And so we've had to, before, when we were just saying, "Yeah, come on, we'll take them all." Well, we've kind of had to refine that over time and figure out what the balance is for us, and then balance too with their school schedules or sports or maybe a job, or all of that is a lot. And so figuring out that balance. Maturity is also one. You have to have appropriate expectations for their level of maturity. And in the summer, we do intern training with our high schoolers and our paid summer interns. And even if we have residents, we all train together in one room for specific days, which is really cool because they're rubbing shoulders with all people from all different stages of ministry, but the same level of maturity isn't always present. And so we have to coach that and be patient with that and give grace. And did I mention coaching? A lot of coaching always. And then, they don't naturally communicate what they need or when they're struggling. And so we've had to learn how to look for that, not wait until they come to us with their problems or their struggles, but be proactive about that, like with the weekly check-ins and different things that we've put in place so that we can quickly, readily realize when they are struggling, because they don't naturally communicate that always. And then last thing I'll say is just I think we have to keep boundaries really clear, so the role fits where they are developmentally, and where they are even developmentally, mentally, physically, spiritually, in all aspects. And I would say we have struggled with all of those things, and why on the other side of it we've had to create some strategies and solutions for them. Those have been some of our primary challenges.
I like what you're saying there about the boundaries, because that was kind of something that we ran into. You do your best to make sure that you've got everybody together, regular youth ministry rules. But even especially with youth ministry, they start to view you more as a peer. And that gets exacerbated when suddenly now they're almost employed by the church. And so there are some moments where you have to lovingly remind them, hey, I'm not your buddy or pal, we can be friendly, right? And, and you can share things with me that you wouldn't share with your friend. I'm going to challenge you in ways that a friend may not challenge you. But don't get too prideful, I guess. And that's a tough tension to manage, because you also want them to feel comfortable around you. And that's a challenge in youth ministry in general, but especially when you start to have high school interns. Another challenge we had ran into actually was just funding. Having interns does have a cost to it, whether you are paying them or you're covering camp or whatever it may be, whatever way you're compensating them, you need to be able to do that. And that kind of came about as we were casting the vision for our church. We really kind of reframed this as this is a mission field of our ministry. And so because we were able to cast that vision as a mission field with not only our board of elders or a church council or the rest of the congregation as they were approving the budget, we were able to get more funding from our ministry line, because this was just a new opportunity. And so because of that, we've been able to kind of adjust our budget accordingly going forward.
Yeah, we've had actually similar challenges to Bob and Alex. So yes to all those things. I think, the other thing is when some of these students were raised in the church and they love this church and this church has always been their safe place, then shifting from just a student who participates to, kind of an owner who serves here can sometimes be a difficult transition. I think that often students might not have an understanding yet of all the workload that goes behind the scenes to make our youth ministries run. So sometimes it's oh, I didn't think that there would be this much work involved at church, and it's good for them to learn that work ethic and what it takes to faithfully steward our youth ministries. And so I think that can be a challenge, but it also can be a really good thing for them to see the realities of ministry and all the things that we carry and the ways we counsel and all the things. So I think we've experienced that. I think also sometimes this is just their first or second job. So they're learning how to keep a calendar and how to, keep up with the workload and what do I need to do to make sure I get all these things done in the hours that I have. And so probably doing a lot more just training on, how do you stay on top of what your boss has asked you to do, and how do you, decide what you're going to wear to the office in the morning. I think we do a lot more of that with high school interns than we might with a college-aged summer intern. And so a lot more coaching involved, like Alex said. But I do think that is one of the joys of high school internships is we get to coach them and we get to set them up for success in their future roles. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking a little bit about what Alex said is not even internship, but even as a youth pastor, for me, I'm 20 years old. And so finding balance between friend and youth pastor or superior, that's been a challenge for me personally. And getting to be alongside Dan, he's really taught me how to kind of step over that barrier and how to find a good line in between, what's good and what's bad, and how to kind of navigate those areas. But and another thing that we've done, we actually did a junior high internship this last summer for a shorter period, and it was definitely a big task and a big job. Not only do they have school and all these things and sports, but now relying on parents to get them from place to place and to make sure that they can be there. But I believe that those middle schoolers will be a part of our internship, high school internship in the summers to come because of what we did with them, even if it was for a short amount of time. And so I'm thankful for those challenges for where we can go to next.
That's awesome, man. Junior high, middle school internships, it really is the future of the church, right? Developing our own local pipeline of leadership. Even in elementary, fifth graders can work, as be leaders of their elementary school or sixth graders, depending on your church dynamic or your school dynamic, middle school, high school. I think one of the things that struck me as you were talking, Carson, was, there's going to be also in doing high school internships, there's a parent piece to that internship that's not like there is with maybe with, young adults or even adults that might do internships or residencies for you. And it goes back to that communication, which has been mentioned several times, but keeping the parents in the loop is a really key piece to having good participation with your high school or in some cases middle school students. So, okay, so this leads me to the next question, right? Which is if you could start all over again. So let's just say you're dreaming about this, but you've never done it. I think this will be helpful to other people to hear. What would you do differently? What have you learned that, man, this is really important, this is really valuable, and I want to make sure I would do this differently, or I would repeat this. I did it a little bit, but I would do it at even a higher level. What are those things for you guys?
Chip, I think I always feel this tension between wanting something to happen, kind of naturally, it just kind of all comes about, it's real grassroots, and then something being strategic, and there's this tension for me between the grassroots and strategic. And our high school program kind of began, grassroots, just organically started. We had some high schoolers ask for it. But if I could go back and do it over, I would put way more structure in it in the beginning. We could go to a place where, but I wish I had started from a place of strategy and been more strategic about my high school or high school interns rather than just letting it happen organically and develop over time. And that's kind of my MO, right? I just was like, yeah, we're going to figure it out. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. Well, and I didn't have enough structure to the program. And so for a little while, we struggled there with simple things like a high schooler didn't even tell their parents they were doing an internship until they were like, hey, we can't leave for a family vacation. I'm doing this thing. And I was like, oh, I should have had a structure where a parent had to sign to say, I agree, my kid can do an internship, you know? And so if I could go back, I would do that differently. I would put more structure in the beginning, things like, you know, a simple handbook, weekly check-ins, clear learning goals. I think the more structure on the back end, the easier that will be, the more clear communication. Clarity is kindness. And so more structure is good. And then I'd also bring more voices in besides my own so that interns could learn from a variety of leaders, more than just, you know, one singular coach. I would get my high schoolers around our lead pastor more and around some of the elders in our church. I wish earlier we would have invited them in to teach a training or invest in those high schoolers early on. I think that would have helped buy-in spread more quickly throughout our church rather than it taking a little bit of longer time. But for me, it all comes down to more structure on the front end, I think would have helped me. What about you, Sarah, there in Arizona? What are you experiencing?
You actually took my answer. I was going to say more structure as well. I think it was similar for us where we, you know, had these teenagers who were identifying a call to the ministry. So we wanted to give them a place to practice that and learn, but really didn't have the structure. And so I would go back and, you know, plan some of that before we brought students into it. And, you know, we figured it all out and we tackled the hurdles and all the things. But I do think, you know, the structure is important and it gives them a framework and something to fall back on. So yeah, I think I would do that differently. I also think I'm learning this with all of our internships that I always need to make time to just have those one-on-one conversations. I think it's very easy in ministry to get so busy running the programs and you kind of have interns on the fringes. And the first thing that can fall off my calendar is making sure that we are caring for them and pastoring them too and shepherding them. And I think you really can't lose if you are shepherding them and asking them good questions and looking for opportunities to help them process, you know, how do you think the night went? What were the pros and cons? What would you do differently the next time you do it? Or, you know, just personal, like, how is it going? How are you, you know, handling doing high school and having a job and all the things. And so I think, yeah, just more personal time and making sure that that is not the first thing to fall off my calendar when I get busy, because they need us to be their pastors too at the end of the day.
Yeah. In fact, I like that you guys are saying structure. We actually had done so much work trying to figure out a structure beforehand. You know, having that parent meeting, like you're saying, Bob, you know, doing these things to make sure we're all on the same page that when we began or as we were going through the internship, so that we all had the same commitments that we were doing, that we almost kind of messed up the dismount. You know, like, so they've done the internship the entire summer, that we had done such great work preparing, and then we got through the summer, and then we're like, okay, school's starting, what now? And so for me going forward, that's probably the thing I need to work on the most is, okay, we've done all this work. We've poured into these kids all summer. You know, we honored them in front of the church. We did everything really well and they've been equipped. But for us, the biggest challenge has probably been like, okay, how do we most effectively leverage all that intentionality that we've placed into them into our ministry now going forward into the regular school year? So that's probably the biggest challenge that we've had.
Yeah, as far as the internship goes, and we expected a lot out of our interns as far as them sacrificing things to do, and if I was to redo it this next coming year, it would be that we're not necessarily wasting their time, and we want them to receive something from it. And so we can put all the work into it. We can do all the legwork behind it. We can do the all the preparing, but we have a short amount of time to capture these students. Maybe what their life choice and their life job could be in the future, and we have just a short amount of time to allow them to receive that. And so, I think we could do better at just honing in on it, what it really means to be the church, and what we do and what it looks like outside of the church, and who we are as a church and as a collective, as Christians, as saints. And so so that's what I would really focus on going forward, is just making it like worth everything they're giving up that summer to say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
So awesome, man. Before we get to the final question, this is just a perfect lead in. You guys aren't just here on this because you're trying to help other people do it and learn from each other. But you guys, this summer, I just learned this recently. Carson, Alex, you guys got together with Kayla and dreamed about, how do we help people with this content? How do we help them be prepared? What are some of the questions they need to be asking? And you've been working on something together, and you put this thing together. Kayla, tell us a little about that story, how it came to be. I know it was that Called, so tell us a little about Called, and then just this resource that's available for people.
Yeah, what's so amazing about this conversation is it seems like so many of you guys are expressing this desire that you could have, if you had started with more structure in the beginning. And so now, between this conversation, between the materials that we're working on, other people don't have to go through that. They can kind of build off of what you've already learned and start with a structure. And so I've gotten together with Alex, with Carson, and we have we've been trying to put together some material to help youth pastors, to help pastors launch high school internships in their churches. A lot of this has flowed out of our Called initiative, the retreat that we had this summer, and just seeing all of these high school students who are ready to serve, and they don't need to be told to wait till they're in college. And we want to offer them more and more opportunities to start serving in their very own churches. And so advice from me as well, just to utilize all of the Called materials that we've put together. We encourage our high school students to develop in like 3 areas through our Called devotional. We want them to meet with a mentor once a month. We want them to serve in a ministry once a week. And we want them to spend time with Jesus daily. And we believe that by starting this rhythm in their life now, they will grow into even more amazing ministry leaders in the future, and that they will expand the kingdom, and we'll see just amazing growth through that. And then I also want to tell you about Called. We next September, we're going to be at Country Lake Camp. And this event is amazing because not only do your students receive teaching in those areas, but they also get this chance to meet other high school students who feel called to ministry. At the last event we had 78 students from 21 different states, which is amazing. All of these students get together and they walk away with relationships with other high schoolers who feel called to ministry from across the country. So between the teachings, the relationship, all of it is a great way to help your high school students grow as they explore their call.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's also fun just to get together. I know my small group, we have a text chat that goes on, and we've done together on Zoom, and also I know there's a Called reunion coming up where everybody who went to Called in the summer is getting back on October 12th. And so people are wanting to align to help support, and I can't wait for Called 2026. It'll be our 3rd one. Country Lake Camp just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, for the weekend, and free to students to come. And if any adults come, they pay, but the students are free to be a part. We're excited about that. So the opportunity that's in front of us is a massive chance. So let's just kind of wrap up with the final closing thought about the next steps and your final take. What would you want to say to people who are exploring this idea as they think about pouring into high school students?
I think I've been struck by the question of just, who is the next you? Like, who comes behind you in leadership? And I think that is an important question to ponder. I think for so many years, we just try to build our platforms and our, no, sir, sorry. So sorry. Ministry happening.
Edit button. Edit button.
Yeah, you can edit. But yeah, I think, I in my early 20s was like, I need to find my place in ministry and I need to figure out what it looks like to be a pastor. But as I've gotten more into it, I feel like the most joy comes from, raising up the next generation of leaders and giving them just the opportunities and safety to, really practice ministry and try it and see all the ins and outs. And so I think if you are on the fence, I would say, just think about who the next you is. Like, who do you see in your ministry that has giftings and has the passion? And, even if it might look like, this could, causes problems, or like they're a little rough around the edges, like those are the best kids to take a risk on. I think that, it does bring such a dynamic to your ministry and adds fresh voices. And so I think it's a win, even if you feel like you don't have the structure in place right away, or you don't have, the resources or the capacity. I think taking a risk on an intern and giving them a safe place to blossom is always a win.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest keys is you got to give them real responsibility, right? If all we do is ask them to set up chairs or make copies, they'll never actually grow into what we're hoping they grow into. And when you give them real responsibility, when you let them lead a devotion, run part of a small group, help them plan an event, you give them space to practice ministry, and you have to have an environment where they have the freedom to fail. That is so key, that they feel the freedom to try something, even if it's not going to be a win. You also have to set up others so they know that's the environment you're creating. Because if other people don't know it, they're going to look at that failure not as the opportunity to grow, but just as a failure of the church. And when I think about Jesus and the disciples, I think about all the times he sent them out, brought them back in and said, "You knuckleheads, what are you doing? You're not, and he would have these correcting moments with them, and just know they're not always going to nail it, and that's okay. The point isn't perfection, it's formation. And that's what Jesus is trying to do in their lives. And by the way, it's what we are supposed to be helping them do in their lives as well. You and I might be the ordinary way Jesus is forming them into what he wants them to be. And I think that's where growth happens, when students step out, when they stumble a little bit, and then they have leaders like you who comes alongside them and helps them reflect and learn and see how God is at work even in the middle of it. I think that's the heart of discipleship, not just, transferring information, but allowing the Holy Spirit to do some transformative work in them through those moments, those, ordinary moments of life. And just, man, keep that in mind and go for it. Whether you know it or not, there are high schoolers who are ready, middle schoolers who are ready to step up and take on more of a leadership role. They just need someone, a leader above them, to notice them and to call it out of them and to invite them in to something really cool. And it's one of the favorite things I get to do, and I hope everyone gets to experience that too.
Man, just being a part of this circle today has been incredible. The 6 people plus myself, to hear these stories and to hear what you guys are doing and the way you're investing in young people's lives, it is absolutely amazing. And I think the last advice that I would give is, man, take somebody with you. I got that advice from a dear friend several years ago. Take somebody with you, and you know what? These young people, they're already there in your congregation. They're already in your youth groups, and so just look around and ask somebody to come along with you and entertain that idea. Today, Carson and I had lunch with an old friend today, and kind of a last minute thing and everything, but I introduced Carson today to my dear friend Mark Shaner, and so
what's up, man? You never know who's calls.
He's a guest.
Never know.
Oh man! But we have had an incredible day, just rekindling and talking, and then he's been able to speak into Carson today, and he's been able to speak into Cameron today, and it's the same thing that you did, Chip, when you came to visit us here in Doniphan. And so People's all around us, and man, we get to do this. Can you believe it? We get to do this in the kingdom of God around the world, and we get to do it with people like each other. And so I'm looking forward to October, looking forward to the retreat. And Carson and I got our plane tickets, and we're going to come in and be a part of that. Can we bring somebody with us? Maybe that's, is there still an opening maybe?
There is. We got one more week. So
Okay.
You want to get it in. Yep.
Okay.
You just have them go register at the link.
Okay. So Mark, you got anything for us?
Man, it's fun listening to you guys, man. I've been standing here in the doorway listening to all this wisdom. I mean, bottom line, it's all about relationships. At the end of life, man, it's about relationships. Dan and I started ministry together. Bob, something you just said, who I heard, if we delegate tasks, we create followers. But if we delegate authority, we create leaders.
Mm.
And so we're out to create leaders, and not just having them take down chairs and setting up tables and giving them tasks. But it's fun to drop in on you guys. I'll get out. Hey, my half brother's here. He's never been on a podcast. Can I introduce you to my half brother real quick?
I just want to make sure that Dan's let everybody know that there's no honorarium fee for this podcast. Like, we're not giving anything out for all these special guests. All these special guests going up.
This is my half brother Thomas, who I've tried to keep hidden from all you guys. But this is my half brother.
Thomas, that's a dream come true podcast. First initiative, man. Way to go. That's the best, man.
I'm out.
Oh my gosh, Alex, please save us.
Well, I mean, it's hard to follow that act, but as my surprise guest, I don't have anyone. But as some final takeaways, one of the things that I was thinking of was just really the entire shift of perspective you have to have when it comes to going from like a college internship to a youth internship. In particular, when you are working with college students, you are recognizing that there's like this almost like 50-50 split of like, hey, we're trying to encourage and empower you, but also this is a job and we do need things that are done around here. But when you're working with students, man, you really shift that to where there's no longer like a give and take. It is all giving, which is a good thing. In fact, I would say like it was probably, I loved my high school or my college intern the summer before, but like we really enjoyed having our students around this summer. In fact, we're just hoping to have both programs next year. So that'd kind of be like my takeaway is, especially if I'm passing along wisdom. I don't have Mark Shaner here to do it, but one of our associate pastors, he passed on some words. He said, no matter what the ministry it is you're doing, your first goal is to just love the people. And so that was something we would encourage our students, whether they were answering phones or, helping out in the kitchen or being on stage, love the people. And it's the same thing that we're called to do as the coaches, as the pastors with our interns. Love those people too.
It's so good, Alex. You're right. We talk about in IA a lot that it should be a win for everyone. It should be a win for the intern. It should be a win for the church. And it should be a win for the coach. I think I've found when working with high school interns that you have to keep in mind that the biggest win needs to be for the high schooler, not for me. They're not going to do extra work for me. It's probably the most costly on me. The win really is for the high schooler. And then it should be a win for your church. You don't want the high schooler causing problems for your church or your ministry. But at the same time, the win doesn't come with maybe what they produce, but more the relationships that are formed. To your point, Alex, it's when a grandma takes out that intern for lunch after church and gets to have relationship with them. It's when a board member, as was mentioned by Dan earlier, gets to see the fruit of pouring into the next gen, and they all of a sudden see it. And now they believe in it. So it should be a win for the church. Intern first, the church, and then it's a win for us. And for us, the win often comes much later, right when we see what they've become and see how our influence has maybe helped pour into them. But doing them great, should be that win-win-win. Thank you all so much for your time today. This has been awesome. I can't wait to see so many of you at Call 2026, September 25th through the 27th at Country Lake Camp outside of Louisville, Kentucky. And I would say this to anybody who's listening: if you've made it all the way this far, you probably have some questions. You got some thoughts. All of these people are available. We are a resource to you. We'd love to learn from you and what you're doing. So don't hesitate to reach out. You can find the resources that were talked about at the internacademy.net website. You can also send an email from there. And if you want to connect with any of these folks, ask questions, I would encourage you to pick your brain. All of us are standing on the shoulders of other people who've kind of gone before us, and they would love to do that for you as well. So God bless you all. Thank you for being a part.